Some people in this world are on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil, and some, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel.
And I'm Nicole Kral. You may have heard us as we worked on stories and series about law enforcement and crime. And it's safe to say we've seen some of the best and worst of human nature.
We decided there's no greater honor than bringing you the stories of the men and women who seek out the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who put the pieces together on some of the biggest Mississippi crime stories of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. Hey guys, I'm Therese Apel. You're watching Investigation Homicide, or you might be listening on a podcast. Of course, we come up live on Facebook, but we're also on all your favorite podcast places. Want to take us with you and listen to us while you work out or whatever. I'm here with my partner in crime, Kral. We have decided to start this podcast basically to tell the stories of a lot of these different investigators, prosecutors, attorneys of different kinds, and survivors of some of these stories that you hear on the news. We want to go into the side of it behind the scenes. So that's what we're here to do today. Let me start off with Nicole. Tell us about who you are, Nicole. Tell the audience about you.
Goodness. Hey everybody. I'm Nicole, and I've been working with Therese for probably about 6 years now, I think. We started a bunch of stuff together.
You can say, we did start Dark Horse together.
I'm on my own, but we got together again. And this is something that has been in the making for a long time, and we're super excited to bring it to you. And I'm just really excited to be here. Therese is the brains behind all of this, and her partner in crime right now. I'm gonna try to bring a little bit of general public questions to the platform and be a voice for the people on the other side and all the silly questions that I have. I hope other people have.
Sure. Well, and for you guys that don't know our history, it's kind of funny because basically Nicole and I knew each other because we kept our horses at the same place. And one day she was talking about how she didn't like her job, and I was like, so I'm about to do something crazy. Do you want to do it with me? So as we went along, of course, she learned a lot about law enforcement. And being in the same tiny little office together, I learned a lot as someone who worked solely almost with emergency professionals, law enforcement. That side of things, I learned what the other side sometimes too. And we would have these really interesting discussions. So as this podcast goes on, we will be on weekly, and we'll be bringing you different things. You'll have that differing view in some cases. And in some cases, it's a pretty clear one way or the other. Today, though, we have a special guest. Each week, we're going to bring you somebody that has an inside look into whatever case we're talking about. We wanted to talk to y'all about Carly Gregg because that just happened just a couple weeks ago. A lot of people are fascinated with what was going on with a 14-year-old who just shot her mom. Right now, we have the prosecutors on that case. Michael Smith is with us, the assistant attorney over at Rankin County. Michael, tell us about you before we start talking Carly Gregg.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on today. I appreciate it. Like you said, I worked at the DA's office in Rankin County for the district for Madison County since July 2020. I started writing COVID, which was a fun time to start coming from private practice over to the state. So I had a lot to catch up on there at the DA's office. Coming there in the middle of COVID. I handled a variety of cases over there. We all kind of have a caseload that we have there. We help out on other cases. I prosecuted controlled substance, drug type cases. I've prosecuted crimes against children, sex crimes, things like that, aggravated assaults. And then Catherine Newman, who everyone is pretty familiar with now from this case. Catherine and I got to work on this case together. I grew up in Mississippi. I grew up down around Brookhaven and spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. Kind of right after high school, and then have been practicing law for about 15 years now. Like I said, I've been at the DA's office for the last 4.5 years or so. And happy to be here.
Great. Now we have a big audience in Brookhaven. So Brookhaven, we got a homeboy here. Let's start off. Let's talk about Carly Gregg situation. For those of you that didn't necessarily know what was going on, I remember the day the call came out over the radio that a 14-year-old had shot her mother, and potentially her stepfather too. I remember it was a little confusing on the radio that day. And so, of course, when you hear that, you always think, what is that about? Generally, what I've found is when you have a child that shoots their parent at that age, there's sometimes some kind of abuse or something like that going on. But Michael, talk to us about what was before the shooting, what was the home situation like over there?
So absolutely. And I've talked about this, a couple times. And I just want to be clear as we kind of go into the talk today. There really was no winner in this case. I mean, people come up to us all the time and they say, well, how's it feel to get a win? Or congrats on your win. And Catherine and I walked straight out after court and ended up giving an interview to Court TV at the time. They're basically right outside the courthouse. And like we told them, there really is no winner in a case like this. I mean, you have someone like Smylie, and at the end of the day, that's what this all boils down to. That this is about Smylie. It's about a 41-year-old lady who lost her life at the hands of a 14-year-old daughter. And again, like I've talked about multiple times as well. By all accounts, Carly was very bright, very extremely bright. I mean, made a 30 on her ACT when she was 13 years old. Skipped the fourth grade. Was very highly ranked in her class at Northwest ranking at the time. Even after skipped a grade. And so there really are no winners in this case. It's just unfortunate what happened. But at the end of the day, there are laws and things that as prosecutors we have to enforce. And so as far as the home life at home with Carly. Obviously you had her and her mom Ashley Smylie living there, and then you had her stepdad, Mr. Smylie, who people have heard from as well, who testified at trial, who was her stepdad, and they lived there. And I mean, by all accounts, they had a good home life. I believe Ashley and he began dating in around 2019. I think they married in 2020, and by all accounts, they had a good home life. But as everyone heard at trial. I mean, there were things going on in Carly's life that I don't think anyone knew about. Maybe outside some of her close friends. But certainly, I don't think Ashley, her mom, or he knew about those at the time.
Sure, and that's not unusual for a teenage girl to have secrets from their parents.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I've got a teenage daughter as well, and I hope I would like to think that I know all of her secrets, but I'm sure there are some that I don't know.
Sure, and we're going to ask you about that. So as this went on, of course, if you watched the case at all on TV, you saw or on any of the streaming services, you saw that basically Carly comes home from school with her mom after they found out some stuff at school. One of her friends had revealed some things to her mother.
That's correct. So several of Carly's friends testified at trial. We called some of them, and one of her friends, well, really two of her friends who both testified at trial. One we called in our case in chief. The other one the defense called in their case in chief. Those two friends began to get worried about Carly, and they were worried about Carly because by her own admission later she began smoking THC vapes, maybe a little bit of marijuana. Really, this case never was about THC or marijuana or anything like that. Some people get caught up in they're being hard on marijuana, they're being this and this. Now it's been medically approved in Mississippi. It really never was about that. It was the fact that she was doing something illicit that she wasn't supposed to be doing. And so these friends, and then she also had what people term burner phones. She had some phones that her mom and Heath did not know about. And so her friends, these two friends concocted a plan essentially on March 19th, day all this happened, 2024, that they were going to approach Ashley Smylie, who was a teacher at Northwest Rankin after school, and they were going to tell Ashley basically that they were worried about Carly, and she had been smoking THC vapes, and she had some burner phones. And so that's what they did. One of the friends, female, she kind of led Carly around school that day. To kind of distract Carly while the other friend told Miss Smylie Ashley what happened. And then at some point Carly and the friend come back into the room as they leave to go home. Ashley confronts Carly at one point. She did not know that the friends told on her, if you want to call it that. She just thought her mom had what she termed a sixth sense. But Ashley confronts Carly about this drug usage and the burner phones at some point between school and on the way home. Everyone can see the video that's been played on the internet now from the kitchen video where they walk in. Ashley puts down her belongings on the bar, and she proceeds leads directly towards the side of the house where Carly's room was located. As we are basically search through her room. So that was kind of the drop I think of what led up to everything.
Sure. Now to kind of backtrack a little bit, Nicole, I want to get your input on this too, because one of the things that you guys were able to present, or I think the defense actually used it more, was her journal. And she started journaling back in January, and just kind of like almost setting a stage. It seemed. And Michael, I want to ask you in a second what that looked like from a prosecutor standpoint. But Nicole, when you were younger, did you keep a journal?
I did. And I actually got in a lot of trouble because got my journal stolen, and I got grounded because as a normal, young teenage girl, the stuff you put in there sometimes isn't very nice, and I understand that sometimes it feels like that's the only place you can get those frustrations out. I don't know what it's like to be in a space like that, and I think that's something that I'll never truly understand. But yeah, absolutely. I kept the journal. I think a lot of us did, and it could be indicting at this point, but nobody ever finds it.
Well, and that was the thing that I said is all of us as teenage girls at some point or another had a journal or overly dramatic. I was a writer, so a lot of the things we saw in Carly's journal were very, very dramatic. Talk to me about what you guys thought when you read through that stuff.
Yeah, so the journal, I believe, and this was kind of Catherine's forte. She was much more familiar with the journal, but the journal, she journaled longer just from January. But I think the journal that everybody kind of that was put in evidence. There might even been earlier journal put in, but the journal that really was the focus of the trial was one that she started in January, and I believe Dr. Pickett talked somewhat about how one of the very first entries in there, it appears as though she is writing for an audience. She says something to the effect of, I know you guys are going to find this and read it one day, and there's nothing I can do about it. And then she goes on, and you see in there how smart she is. I mean, she talks about a lot of the books she's read. She talks about Tom Riddle, which Dr. Pickett talked about from Harry Potter, who later becomes Voldemort, kind of the evil character, and she talks a lot about Pinocchio and some of the other things, and she tends to always be drawn to what I would deem as more kind of the darker characters, if you want to call them that. And so just obviously with us, and what ultimately ended up becoming the focus of this trial was basically her state of mind, and whether or not she was insane at the time that this happened. As everyone knows now, we argue that she was not insane at the time. The defense argued that she was insane at the time for various reasons we'll talk about. But we think that just goes back even before to kind of show the state that she was in, the fact that she knew what she was doing. And I think that this whole thing was, as I stated in closing, that it was cool, calm, and calculated. She knew what she was doing, and this was just something that I think she, like I said, definitely knew right from wrong at the time.
Sure. Now, if you didn't see the video, basically what you've got is Ashley goes to the side of the house that Carly's room is in. And Carly kind of waits around. She lets the dogs in and out multiple times. And then Ashley comes out and goes back in, and you can kind of see that there's Carly over here pretending like nothing's wrong, and Ashley's searching the house. At some point, Carly goes back to the side of the house that has her parents' bedroom. There's a couple of checking back and forth. Long story short, comes out with her hands behind her back. She peeks around the corner in the kitchen to see if Ashley has come out of her bedroom and possibly walked into the kitchen. When she saw that she hadn't, you see her go towards Ashley. Well, where Ashley is in her bedroom, and then you hear the gun go off. Then you hear screaming, and then you hear the gun go off again. So obviously, you don't have the actual shooting there on camera, but you've got everything but.
Right, that's correct. And so you, like you said, you stated it all, perfect. I mean, you see her take the dogs out, you see her bring the dogs back in. She kind of walks into the living room area, which is right there, and essentially her room back to the right, her mom and he's to the left, and then she kind of listens to see if her mom is still in her room searching for stuff. It came out in the trial that once officers got on the scene, that you see actually while Carly's outside with the dogs, you see Ashley walk back and forth a couple times, back and forth across the screen. At one time, you see her go towards the side of the house where her room is located, where Ashley is located. You see something in her room. It was later recovered in their room. There were 4 THC boxes. There were empty boxes that obviously at some point contained THC vape pens. Well, Ashley and Heath didn't smoke THC pens, so it was our argument that those were recovered out of Carly's room. But yeah, she listens to see that Ashley's still in her room. Proceeds directly to the side of the house where the gun's located. Gets a 357 revolver, comes back, and then comes over there. You hear 2 shots in fairly rapid succession. One, and then a scream, and then a second one, and then a couple seconds later you hear a third shot, and it all happens within 5 or 7 seconds of each other. And then you see Carly come back into the screen, and then there's a lot of things that happen after that we argued as part of the prosecution that she knew what she was doing, and that kind of became the focal trial as to whether or not she was insane or not.
Right, and one of those major things was that when she came back, she had her hands behind her back. She was facing the camera like I'm facing this camera, and she had her hands behind her back and kind of scooted sideways almost as though to hide whatever she had behind her back, which we assume is the gun from the camera.
Right, that's exactly right. And you can hear on video. Right, exactly. Kind of a metal bar stool, if you want to call it that, or wood, or something hard. And you hear the gun, being put down on the bar stool. And Dr. Pickett talked about it. She has the wherewithal that at some point one of the dogs, which I'm partial to, because I have 2 golden retrievers as well. And so one of them looks exactly like the English cream one looks exactly like mine. But the dogs walk behind her, and she has the wherewithal to look behind her, or at least to reach her hand back there again. To make sure that the dog doesn't knock the gun off. And so that was part of what Dr. Pickett took into consideration, that she was there, she had all of her faculties, she had all of her mental senses working, and she knew exactly what was going on. And at the same time, she's sitting there. The reason she's sitting on the bar stool is because she's using her mom's cell phone to text her stepdad to essentially lure him home.
Right, and we're going to keep following this narrative, and we're going to start asking the other questions in a minute, but just to kind of fill it in, tell them who Dr. Pickett is.
So Dr. Pickett was the forensic psychiatrist, our expert witness, if you will, who testified on behalf of the state. So we had two experts who testified during our rebuttal case. So the way it works is we put on our case in chief, the defense puts on their case, at which time they raise this insanity defense. And so we get to come back in our rebuttal and put on our experts. And so we put on Dr. Amanda Gano, who is a forensic psychologist who works for the state of Mississippi, and she testified as to Carly's competency. So when we talk about competency, we're talking about whether or not someone is competent to stand trial at the time the trial comes to be heard in court. And so do they know the nature of the crimes that they've been charged with? Are they able to assist their are they able to communicate with their attorney? Are they able to assist in their defense? Things like that. That's what we're talking about when we talk about competency. And so Dr. Gano did evaluate Carly as to whether or not she was competent, and did in fact she was competent to stand trial. And so then Dr. Pickett, as he was our psychiatrist, and he evaluated Carly to determine whether or not she was insane, which in Mississippi is right from wrong at the time that you committed this crime. And so he evaluated Carly for that purpose and found that she was not insane at the time. And then ultimately the jury sees the decision as to whether or not they listened to all the evidence, and our experts listened to their expert, and they determined whether or not they think she's insane. They as everyone found that it's not insane.
Sure. Now going back to that night or that day, she picks up the phone, her mom's phone from the kitchen counter, and she texts Heath. What she says is basically, when are you coming home, honey? So that he gets this text and thinks that it's coming from his wife. Now a lot of stuff happens next that just blows my mind. So lay that groundwork for us about Carly has sent this text. What happens next?
Yeah, so Carly sends the text. At some point she begins texting and FaceTiming multiple of her friends as well. So and she's doing that on her burner phone. And so several of these friends actually testified at trial. One friend she actually FaceTime. He I guess could tell that maybe she was a little bit upset about something. And he asked her what's wrong at some point. She says, well, I effed up. Essentially is what she tells. That is exactly what she tells. That's what he testified to. They get off the phone. He begins conversing back and forth through text messages to the point where again he's worried about her. She won't tell him exactly what's going on or why how she effed up. She just says she effed up. He's worried about it. He says, I'm going to call 911 if you don't tell me what's going on. And she says, no, you can't do that. Which of course goes back to our insanity as to whether or not she's right from wrong. She also calls and begins texting another friend who at some point, and this was actually the friend who concocted the plan to talk to her mom earlier. She talks to him and she talks to him and he begins to proceed over to her house on his bicycle. He at some point tells her, I'm worried about you, something to the extent of don't hurt yourself or anyone else. And she says too late. So again, going back to her insanity argument, she knew that she had hurt someone. She calls another friend or texts another friend and says, hey, and all these I really need you over here right now. Can you come to my house? And so she calls another friend, put on their case in chief, and this is the friend who actually went to the house. And obviously not knowing what she was walking into whenever she got there. And so this friend gets there, and I've said this other times too. I don't know if some people were able to put together the timeline. There was a lot going on at trial. But this friend, their text message between Carly, where the friend says at 4:58, hey, I'm here. Which the friend said that would have been right when she was pulling up outside. And then Heath comes home at 5:03. So this friend is only there for 5 minutes. I know there might be some things. The friend was there for a long time. Or why didn't the friend call somebody and tell them what? Well, for one, there's no duty to intervene in Mississippi. There's no legal duty that requires someone to intervene. On top of that, this friend was there for 5 minutes. She says that she got there. She was met at the door by Carly. Carly had the revolver in her hand. Was walking around the house with a revolver. She asked Carly something to the extent of, "Are you squeamish around dead bodies? Have you ever seen a dead body?" And of course, the friend, I don't know. I've never seen a dead body. And so Carly leads her back into her bedroom where her mom is laying on the ground with gunshot wounds, and she proceeds to take this friend to other parts of the house where she shows her other guns in the house. At some point, she says, my stepdad's about to be home. You can wait out in the backyard while I take care of him. Of course, the friend is scared to death by this. And again, this all happened in a 5 minute period. And we know that because we know when the text message was sent, and we know whenever he came home and got shot. And so the friend proceeds out to the backyard shortly thereafter, whether it be seconds or minutes. She hears some gunshots. Carly comes stumbling out into the backyard. Carly just says, run. You can see on the video that we also played that Carly jumps over the fence. The friend jumps over the fence right behind her, and they proceed in opposite directions. Carly goes and climbs through some drainage ditches, and ultimately Deputy Shack picks her up at some point. Kind of takes us through that, and that's whenever she says that she came to from her blackout dissociative state is whenever Deputy Shack picked her up.
Right. So if you're not familiar with that part, she said in court that her attorneys argued that she blacked out when she let the dogs out when she first got home, and came to when she's crawling out of this drainage ditch right before Deputy Shack sees her on the road and stops to pick her up. What's weird to me, and I'll just kind of throw this out there, but you're talking about this girl has shot somebody three times, her own mother three times, and she's getting her friends to trying to get her friends to come over, which is enough weird, but it makes it very real when you realize one of her friends is on his bike. these are not adults, which I know is the point of this whole thing. You've got this teenage boy riding his bike over there,
and which poor kid that was there. That's still a kid too. You know that of course you have a friend there that has a gun in her hand. She tells you to go back. You're in a moment. Like, of course you're going to do what she says. And people, they don't. These are all kids that are having to experience this.
Yeah, and how does that affect? Like my dad, of course, as you know, is a prosecutor, and I had asked him the other day, did he have to prosecute a lot of 14, 15-year-old kids? And he said no. Usually they plead.
Right.
And I mean, obviously that happens. Kids commit a lot of crimes. Some on this level. What does that do when you're putting together a case like this? And you realize okay, our major hurdle here is that this child was 14 when this happened.
Right. And so I mean, again, in the eyes of the law, Carly Gregg was seen as an adult. I mean, in Mississippi, if you're over 13 and you commit certain crimes, especially certain firearms, then you're considered an adult for purposes of the law. But at the same time, you have to go in there and you have to try the case. You understand that there's a jury who's looking at this, and there are kids riding around their bikes. And I think about my teenager and my 8-year-old, the fact that they ride their bikes around. And again, that goes back to what I said at the very beginning. There really are no winners. In the trial, you have again Ashley. This all was about, and then you have Carly, who was by all accounts very successful. But as far as working the case up, we treated it just like we would any other case. Especially when you start digging into the facts of this case, and you watch that video. As soon as we got the video, and as soon as you listen to that 911 call, and you look at the things that she had written in her journal, you look at all these things. Just the kind of callous nature of everything, and how it all happened and how it unfolded. I mean, from a prosecutorial standpoint, we treated it just like we would any other case. And I've talked about we don't have some agenda towards any one type of person, any one age of person, any socioeconomic background, poor, rich. We look at these cases when they come across our desk. Do they meet the elements of the crime? And if they meet the elements of the crime, then we prosecute. And that's kind of the way that we looked at this case. And again, in the eyes of the law, Carly Gregg was an adult, and that's the way we proceeded.
Now going into what did you guys see as your biggest hurdle?
Obviously there was just a lot going on. I mean, you had so many. I think we ended up putting on 19 witnesses. And I mean, really, as the defense said in their statement, it wasn't a case of who done it, so to speak, as we say down here in Mississippi. I think from the very beginning, there was really no question as to who did it. While you don't see Carly do it on video, they're walking around with what's believed to be the gun hidden behind her back. And so really it wasn't a case of what we had to prove. It really just all boiled down to the mental question and the insanity issue, which we felt very good about. Just because of all the things we talked about, and even in my cross-examination of Dr. Clark, I think even he had to admit the fact that she certainly did some things. I think this is what he said. She certainly did some things looked like she knew it. The difference between right and wrong. I mean, all the things talked about hiding, taking down the camera, things like that. And so really, it was just getting that. Sometimes juries can get lost with all the back and forth between expert witnesses and kind of as we call the experts. And so I think that was just probably the major going into all of it. And Catherine's talked about this some that I don't think we've ever tried a case where we could or couldn't talk to as many witnesses as we have. And what I mean by that is we had a lot of witnesses we called in our case in chief that either wouldn't cooperate with us or we couldn't talk to by law. And so Catherine talked about this before with just like the mental health workers, the therapists and the nurse practitioners that she was seeing. There's a rule of evidence out there that we could not talk to them about their treatment because the physician privilege essentially. That we cannot talk to them ex parte without the other side being there. We cannot talk to them about Carly's treatment because of the rules. So other than communicating with them about logistics of hey, pay court on this day, we couldn't talk to them. There were some of Carly's friends who still talk to her, who still support her, who wouldn't come and meet with us, and that's 100% their right. They do not have to come meet with us. At some point, Mr. Smylie got a lawyer and decided he didn't want to speak with us anymore, and so that was somewhat of a hurdle in itself. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, all of those people, we had statements from Mr. Smylie to there on the day that it happened. He came into the sheriff's office a couple weeks later. He gave a statement. So we felt like he was going to testify consistent with what he had already testified about. And again, really through the friends, we had text messages and things. So we didn't feel like there was much wiggle room, so to speak, for them that they could go far off in the left field. And so really, that was kind of a challenge, just not being able to speak to a lot of witnesses. Normally, as a lawyer, you're never going to put anybody on that you don't know what you're going to say. And so that was kind of that was a little bit of a challenge.
Well, and that was something that I wouldn't have known that watching that you guys didn't know what they were going to say.
Right.
That was really interesting.
I mean, we had a good idea based off of the text messages and what Mr. Smylie had previously told investigators. No source. And I mean, we had no reason to believe that he was going to change his story. We just knew that again, everybody agrees. We've talked about this. I can't imagine the situation Smiley's in. I mean, it's just an unbearable situation. One I hope I never have to experience. But at the end of the day, we had no reason he was going to change his testimony. And so while we didn't know what they were going to say, we had a pretty good idea of what they were going to say, just because they had already talked to investigators. They were in text messages, and it was just a matter of getting it into evidence.
Now I want to talk about the dynamic here of having the whole nation watching, because I know that I've covered cases where that outside jabber really threw the ability to investigate, really kind of got in the way of things, investigators down rabbit trails, that kind of thing. For you guys, what dynamics changed for having those cameras in the courtroom that were watching everything, and people from everywhere commenting throughout.
Right. So early on, I think, and I guess we're kind of in a bubble there in our office, and you don't really pay attention to what's going on. And me, I mean, I wasn't involved on this case from the beginning. I kind of got involved later as the case proceeded towards trial. And so I don't think any of us knew that it was as big as what it turned out to be. I know there was a lot of local coverage from pretty much all of the local news stations, blogs, and that kind of thing. We had a good idea. Court TV was going to be there maybe a week or two before. I knew they had covered some of the stuff, but I mean, they're covering trials all over the United States, so we didn't think that this would be one of the ones that they would kind of headline. But the week before, I did see them beginning to set up down in the courtroom. But I told Catherine early on, and she agreed 100%. We talked about this. I didn't to get caught up watching what was going on in the news. I tried my best to. It's easy to go home and flip on. How did I do today? Or what did they say? What did they say? And I really tried to avoid that. For one, because we would get out of trial, and I would continue to work, and a lot of times going home or going to sleep until midnight, and I didn't have time to look at it. But we really said from early on we didn't want to watch any of that stuff. We wanted to try the case the way we wanted to try it, and we didn't want to be influenced by what other people were saying. I didn't want to know if somebody said I sucked online or whatever. I just kind of wanted to do things the way I wanted to do it, and that's kind of the way Catherine did too. And really, it wasn't intrusive. There weren't big cameras in the courtroom. There were kind of like small cameras here, just sitting in different locations around the courtroom. And I mean, at times you did. I mean, going into closing arguments, you kind of feel a little added extra pressure. Because by that time, I'd heard so many friends, so many different people. I saw this. But like I said, we tried to stay out of the not get caught up in what people were talking about online in the media.
That was an interesting part for me was because I watched it online like we talked about. So I was watching the commenters as it went. And I mean, I realized we got a lot of some of the same commenters maybe that will watch this podcast. But it's amazing how they come up with these theories. And they don't understand that like you guys, the investigators and stuff are the ones that actually have those facts in front of you. We're all looking up right now because we're looking at some of the comments. And if you guys have questions, feel free to comment them. We will get to them shortly. We want to make sure that we answer whatever you want to know about this case too. I want to get a little bit more into the side of this. And Nicole, feel free to chime in because I'm going to get into the the stuff that sometimes to me. What makes these cases so interesting is you've got this team of investigators. You've got the people that happened to. You've got the kids involved. You've got all these different things, and you can look at it as this is a case that I'm watching online, or I'm reading about, following. But you forget there's a whole like this is happening to actual people. So I want to start with you, Michael, as a dad. What? I mean, I realize you have the ability to separate yourself as a prosecutor. I mean, you have to have that. But as a dad, what were your thoughts as you went into this?
Yeah, I mean, and you really have to separate, and I don't know, maybe that's kind of coming from a military background. Maybe that's one of the things that I think that I can do pretty good. I know there's a lot of things, especially whenever I was working the crimes against children and the sex crimes that my wife didn't want to hear about any of that stuff whenever I got home in the afternoon. And she worked in an OB/GYN clinic, and I don't want to hear about anything that she had going on at work. So but you really do have to separate yourself from that because of some of the things that we see. And I'm fairly lucky because I live in one county and I work in a separate county, and so I have about a 45-minute drive on the way home every day, and it's across the spillway, so I can look at the water and try to dissociate, if you want to call it that, from buzzword. So I can dissociate between work and home and home. But there are times that you can look over there and you feel for the other side. Like I said, I feel for Ashley Smylie's parents who were in the courtroom every day supporting Carly, trying to hold on to the last bit of normalcy. I'm sure that they have. And Mr. Smylie came home and found his wife shot three times, and who himself was shot by his stepdaughter. I mean, I do feel for them. I mean, I really do. And but that's just the human side of things. I think that we all feel for each other whenever. I mean, just like all the people in North Carolina and the East Coast who were going through everything right now. I feel terrible for them. But at the end of the day, I have a job as well, and I think Catherine and I did a good job at it.
Yeah. Well, and so we just got a question, and it's one that I knew would come up. One of the big pieces of discussion throughout was kind of hate, obviously, and what was that relationship between Carly? Because people found it odd that he would turn around and try to support her. The question asked was it investigated? Talk to us about that. I feel like it's been said many times that there was nothing there, and want to protect the sanctity of that. But what did you guys find?
Yeah, so absolutely, we did investigate that, or the investigators with the sheriff's office, not my office specifically, but there were we've talked about it before. There was what I'll just term as a sex toy that was found in Carly's room. During one of the search warrants, it was found under her bed. And so investigators asked us what we wanted to do with that. We said, send it to the crime lab, and let's have it tested for DNA, because if somebody else's DNA comes back on that, then obviously we want to know. And so that was sent off, and only Carly's DNA was found on that. Actually, only female's DNA. There were no male DNA on the toy. And so we also had his phone, which a phone extraction was completed on. We had Carly's phone, which a phone extraction was completed on. And at no time to any medical provider, to any of the psychiatrists or psychologists who assessed Carly. She did not make one single disclosure regarding Heath. And so I mean, to that extent, we looked into all those things. I mean, we had the toy tested. We looked into their phones. There was not one bit of evidence, leading to the fact there was something inappropriate going on. Now I've since seen a lot of the comments and the things going on about Heath. And again, like I said earlier, everybody grieves different. I'm not saying this the way I would grieve, but again, this is a guy who comes home to see his wife shot in the head three times by his stepdaughter, who I'm sure he loved and treated just like a daughter. As I understand it, I think it's his only child, so to speak. And so. I mean, again, I don't know what his situation is like. I hope I never have to do that. But yes, it was investigated to that extent. And again, there were never any disclosures made to anybody on Carly's behalf.
I do feel like that's something that would have come up in the even in some dramatic like poetic way, it would have come up in the journal if that was going on as well.
Right. I mean, again, she wrote about a lot of things in her journal. And so I mean, again, if it was something like that going on, you would think that she would say something about it at some point.
Let's talk about the mental aspect of this because obviously, I mean, I've said multiple times, dramatic teenage girl, we've all been there. But she took it to a place that Nicole, neither you nor I ever did. Right. She took it to murder. This is what all these medical advisors, not experts were here for. Throughout, they put and of course, I'm drawing a blank on the first doctor that the defense called. Dr. Clark. That's right. So he was well acclaimed expert. Talk about what he said and kind of why in my opinion, y'all's experts came in and really kind of spoke common sense where he spoke book knowledge.
Right. And so I mean, Dr. Clark was a good expert. I mean, again, he's been doing it for a long time. I mean, that was one of their arguments to the jury was that look how much longer Dr. Clark's been doing it than Dr. Pickett. I mean, basically Dr. Pickett doesn't have enough experience to be here doing this. To that extent, I would say that Dr. Clark was tendered as an expert in child and adolescent psychology, and not forensic psychiatry. And the people out there who know, I mean, forensic. When you're talking about forensic, you're talking about a forensic pathologist. You're talking about a medical examiner who does autopsies or something along those lines. You're talking about who are involved in the criminal justice system. And so Dr. Pickett is and was tendered as forensic psychiatrist, whereas Dr. Clark was tendered as a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And again, not only that, Dr. Pickett had also is also board certified as an ER physician, as immersion room. He testified that he has seen and treated children in the ER as well. But again, at the end of the day, and I've talked about this a bit, and it was a big issue at trial. I talked about it at trial. It was the state's position that Dr. Clark did not render an opinion consistent with what the standard in Mississippi is for insanity. And so the standard in Mississippi for insanity is what people term insanity. It's a guy back in the 1800s who claimed he was insane. Daniel McNaughton. And so become known as the McNaughton standard. But the standard in Mississippi is did you know the difference between right and wrong at the time this crime was committed? And so did Carly Gregg know the difference between right and wrong whenever she shot and killed her mom and shot and attempted to kill Heath when she hid his camera in the refrigerator? And Dr. Clark testified that he didn't believe she appreciated the difference between right and wrong, which is, as Dr. Gugliano testified, what we would term a heightened standard, if you want to call it that. So meaning that in order to appreciate something, you have to know what the moral ramifications are going to be, what the community fallout is going to be, all these different things that are different from just simply knowing the difference between right and wrong. And not only that, if you watch back my cross-examination of Dr. Clark, at the end of the day, Dr. Clark even had to agree with me that it certainly looked at times like Carly knew the difference between right and wrong because of all the things we talked about, the cover up and the running from the scene and that kind of stuff. And so Dr. Clark, again, I think he still sees patients up in Boston. He taught at Harvard for 20 years. I mean, he was certainly qualified to do what he did. I just don't think that the jury bought what he was selling.
Sure. Well, and Dr. Pickett, it appeared that he even went out of his way. And I'm not picking my favorite expert here, but from a viewer standpoint, it appeared that Dr. Pickett went out of his way to fill in the gaps of what he didn't know. He went and researched in places. He talked about how many different books he had read, or different things he had done to make sure that he understood what this was, and then could apply it to what he was looking at.
Right.
Did you feel like that strengthened his testimony?
I mean, I certainly strengthened his testimony. I mean, not only that, I mean, it's been made out many times like, well, he didn't know what he was doing, so he had to go read a book in order to update himself on what was going on, or to kind of teach himself. And that wasn't the case at all. I mean, I think when we're talking about the in-depth nature of what he did, he rendered an 85-page report. He looked at hundreds or thousands of text messages. He looked through all these journal entries that she did. He looked at all the medical charts and notes that had been taken and written about Carly. I mean, he just spent an inordinate amount of time going through and digging through this stuff. And I think that showed in his opinion, and that just gave him a better view from a broad perspective as to the whole picture. And I think he was able to talk about the whole picture, and in doing that, he was able to talk about the specifics that led to what ultimately became his opinion.
Do you feel like I mean, because I felt like the case did very much lean towards you guys because of the evidence. And I feel like that's a fair objective statement. Did you feel like when Dr. Pickett testified, did that kind of put the icing on the cake?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it was never a case of who did it. I mean, that's what the defense attorney said in their statement. I don't really think it was ever a case of who did it. So yeah, in that sense, I think it did lean towards us, if you want to call it that. But I think that was kind of our plan. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, we put on our case in chief, their case in chief, and we ultimately ended with Dr. Pickett, and that was just kind of the icing on the cake to wrap everything together because he talked about a lot of what had already been testified about. I mean, he talked about the video, he talked about the journals, and all the things that were already in evidence. He was able to bring it full circle right there. It was one of the last things the jury heard before they went back to the jury room outside of closing arguments.
Did it surprise you that they came back that fast?
You never know. I mean, Catherine and I, we've tried cases against sex offenders that came back in 20 minutes, and I tried a shaken baby case back in March where I had a full confession and it took 4 hours. So, you really never know. And I think they came back on the guilt phase in about 2 hours. We knew that they would have to look through a lot of evidence back there. Obviously, there were videos, there were pictures, there were medical records, there was a ton of physical evidence, meaning bullets and things that they had to look through that were recovered during the autopsy. There were things that they had to do once they got back there. And I think they got the case around 10:30 or 10:45, which is right before lunch. And so we knew they were lunch while they were back there as well. And so. Yeah, I mean, you really never know. I mean, it's when you think you got a slam dunk case, it'll take them 6 hours, and then there are other times they come back in 20 minutes. So you really don't know. And to this day, I have no idea what they discussed back there. I haven't spoken to any of the jury members or the jurors, and so I don't know what ultimately led to them making their decision the way they did. But obviously, I think they got it right.
I actually talked to somebody who's friends with one of the jurors and said that the jury there was no question that she was guilty. That was part of it. They were comfortable with that. But when the judge said, "Okay, you guys can give the sentence, or you can let me do it. That kind of threw him for a loop, because at one point it was just, yeah, she did it, but then all of a sudden now we may have to dictate what happens to her life.
Right, and so this was one of the very first cases, if not the first case in Mississippi, since the law changed back on July the 1st, where that was kind of on the table, and all that changed in a case everybody refers to as Miller versus State of Alabama, that had to do with sentencing juveniles to life parole that came out several years ago from the United States Supreme Court. And so the law in Mississippi changed now to where you can give them life if fixed by a jury, or 20 to 40 essentially by the judge if the jury decide. And so during the guilt phase, which is kind of when all the testimonies come in and all that kind of stuff, we cannot actually talk about what we call punishment. So that is not something in most trials you cannot talk about punishment. You can't say things like you convict my client, he's going to prison for the next 30 years. You can't say stuff like that in the trial. And so during the guilt phase, we were not able to talk about punishment. And then whenever it came time there, once they found her guilty, I'm sure they probably thought that maybe their job was over. And then they had that, and we really had no clue how how they were going to come back. I mean, we just so the three options on the table is life with parole, life without parole, or they could say they come up with a decision and they can just send it back to the judge, and then he basically be able to sentence her between 20 years on the murder.
Sure. Well, we have another question up here from Bird, and it says, I thought Dr. Pickett knew what he was saying, but the lawyer downed him for not having a lot of experience. So if that's how much experience.
If that's so, how much experience did the defense attorney?
Nicole has her glasses on. Yes. Sorry, guys. So I guess let's talk about that for a second, because there was an interesting dynamic here in that you had Kevin Camp on the defense, and he's a well-known, very experienced defense attorney. The lead attorney on the case was Bridget Todd, who before this has pretty much been a divorce lawyer from my understanding for the most part. Talk about that dynamic. Do you know anything about kind of did that play into the trial at all?
I'm not here to really talk about any of the attorneys or how much they have or how much they don't have. I thought that given the case that they had, I thought Kevin and Bridget did a good job. Obviously there were some things that we didn't agree on throughout the trial that were well documented and on TV. But they both did the job that they were hired to do. And like you said, Kevin has been trying cases in this area and practicing law for a long time. Bridget has also tried cases, and she's had other criminal cases that she's had. I know with our office, I think I've even had some other cases or so. Certainly wasn't their first rodeo with our office or in criminal law.
Sure. Well, and I think everybody's kind of talked about the fact that since the case has been finished, there's been interviews where Bridget and potentially Carly's dad have come out to talk about this. There was one with WLBT where Bridget then filed a motion, and I'll let you kind of expound on that, but basically saying that the father had said some things in the WLBT interview. The WLBT came back and said, wait, that's not in our interview. He didn't say that. Talk about and we don't have to deep into the personalities or anything, but what happened with that?
Yeah, so as I understand it, and I've watched the interview that aired on TV. I actually haven't even listened to the full interview that WLBT later was kind of in response to everything. I know what they're saying or didn't happen. But I would say that ultimately the claim was made that at some point prior to all this back several years ago that Kevin Gregg, who's Carly's biological dad, and I guess Ashley Smylie, who was married to Kevin at one point after their divorce, they sought and got equestrian therapy for Carly, which we all knew that was something that we had records of Kevin and Ashley's divorce that happened over in Warren County a number of years ago. And we knew that Carly received equestrian therapy. Part of what the defense is now arguing is that part of that equestrian therapy was sought out because she was having auditory hallucinations. And that's what the defense has said. And WLBT saying no, Kevin Gregg never said that was never brought up. Here's the full interview where you can hear that it was never brought up. You know, I don't know what was said, what was not said. I don't know if something was lost in translation. But I know what the defense is saying, and I know what WLBT's response is now. And just to be clear, I would say also that we scoured Dr. Pickett scoured and all the experts, all the medical records that we had dating back to I think at least 2020. We never saw one single medical record where Carly alluded to the fact or disclosed to anyone that she was experiencing any kind of auditory hallucinations. Now I know some of her friends might say that she did or didn't or whatever the case, but it wasn't until after she was arrested and in the jail at Rankin County where she met with some of the Region 8 mental health professionals and some of the other medical professionals in the jail where she disclosed some sort of auditory hallucination. But she never before March the 19th, 2024 disclosed any type of auditory hallucinations.
Well, so Nicole and I are both equestrians. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but have you ever heard of anybody needing to do equestrian therapy because of any kind of hallucinations?
No, not necessarily hallucinations, but they do come behavioral, which sometimes stem from mental health issues. That I'm not a therapist. I teach kids how to ride horses, and I am nice to them. You know, 1 hour a week there's their little happy place. So, I think that it's just depends on if that was a certified equine therapist. And I know that a lot of on the other hand, I know that a lot of kids divulge things to me that they not their family members or even mental health therapists sometimes, and that puts you in a sticky situation where I on the other hand, was correct me if I'm wrong. Did she not write in her diary about hearing voices?
She talks about in her diary that her hollering or going back and forth I think was something. I think she did. I think that there was some testimony as to whether or not that she smoked THC or smoked before all that happened or what happened. And but yeah, I mean she did write in her diary something along those, and that was introduced as evidence. And I think like I said, my point is simply that there was no medical provider that was close to.
And when it came to the experts, there were some questions about if the medication she was put on recently had anything to do with her mental state. As a kid, and you're going through that kind of trying to find the right dose and being put on stuff. Did that come out in the courtroom at all about any of her medication history and the timeline of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So all that came out in trial. So in January of 2024, she began seeing a nurse practitioner, Olivia, who testified at trial, and Olivia put her on, I believe it was 25 milligrams of Zoloft at the time. She saw Olivia again in February of 2024. And Olivia increased her Zoloft to 50 milligrams of Zoloft at that time. In March, approximately before this happened, she saw Olivia again. At that time, she said the Zoloft was making her feel like a zombie, essentially, is what she said. And so Olivia said, okay, let's wean you off the Zoloft, and we're going to start you on Lexapro. And so they started her on what essentially the Dr. Pickett deemed as kind of a starter dose of Lexapro, 5 milligrams, which is the bare minimum that someone could be on. There's also a lot of testimony that Dr. Pickett gave about half-lives and whether or not how much of that actually in her system. Right. Yeah, that all of that came out at trial, and the experts talked at great length about that.
And a lot of medications change your personality. Sometimes her courtroom demeanor came a lot, and people had a lot of questions about that. How she was almost very emotional when she should have been, and then also not emotional. She probably should have been a little emotional. How do you think that when it comes to her defense counsel, and it comes to giving your client advice on court and demeanor, do you think that she could have done something different in any sort of way?
I mean, the thing about that is, and I really didn't see her a lot. I mean, after COVID, our tables used to be in a different spot in the courtroom, and now our tables are side by side, and we're facing the jury. And so a lot of times she was over here to my side, or kind of behind me, so to speak, if I was turned a certain way. And I couldn't really see her, so I didn't see a lot of hers, but obviously she's facing directly at the jury. I will say that as everyone knows, this is a very high case in the sense that there were cameras in the courtroom at all times. So from the time we stepped in the courtroom at 8:30 in the morning, she came in until we left at 4:35, 5:30 in the afternoon. There's a camera on her at all times. I mean, I'm sure at some point she was doing stuff that either appeared that she was. I know there was a lot of talk about. She laughed. She smiled. She drank a Coke. She was eating something. I mean, at the end of the day, at some whenever the camera's on you, for 9 hours straight, you're gonna do something that I don't know what the jury saw that. I know Kevin, Cam, and Catherine were on with Nancy Grace on Monday morning, and some of this came up. Kevin talked about that they talked to Carly about some of the videos and the 911 calls and things, but she had actually never seen or heard a lot of that stuff. So she had not seen. According to what Kevin said, she had not seen the video from inside the house. She had not heard the call that Heath made, and so you did see her get upset. Again, I'm not here to judge whether those are real raw emotions or they're not. People can decide on their own. So, but I know what I saw what I heard over there. I know that she cried during those times. So I'm sure that's part of what the jury's looking at. I mean, the appellate court of Mississippi talk about kind of the fog of war. That we're the ones there. The jury is the one looking and seeing what's happening. And so that's why they're slow to overturn jury verdicts. Barring certain things. And I do think the jury that is something that they look at. And I'm sure Kevin's tried probably hundreds of cases this time. And I know Bridget's helped him with some too. And I'm sure that they prep Carly on and talk to her about. That's all part of what we call trial strategy.
One of the things that I always try and do when I'm in a courtroom, because I like to watch the jury when I'm in the courtroom. I like to kind of see what they're doing, what they're looking at, how are they taking things. But one thing I have to think of when it comes to the defendant is as a first responder will be on the scene of a horrible accident. And it's like you've done your job, you've been in the heat of the moment, and then the tension breaks because maybe the wrecker gets there, maybe the ambulance is left, maybe you're waiting on the coroner, and you're standing over here talking. And somebody says something, and because you're humans, and this is your job that you do, and this is something that's happening, but you are not absolutely in the moment. At that moment, you laugh, or you smile, or you pat somebody on the back, or whatever like that. And there's somebody in their car waiting on the traffic to get you on camera. How dare this firefighter laughing at the scene of a fatal accident? And the thing is, to an observer, they can see the seriousness of this, and that's all they can see. But we've been entrenched in it for as long as as an accident on the road or murder case. Yeah, you can. There are going to be times that you're going to pull yourself out of that, and what you said was funny.
Right.
So I laughed. Or that. So I try and give some grace on that.
Right. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I was deployed overseas twice, and a lot of Marines have a real sense of humor. Sometimes you have to have a dark sense of humor, so to speak, in order to make it to it. And I mean, again, first responders, EMS, fire, medical, all those people. I mean, I can't imagine that they see on a daily basis. I only see part of what they see at the DA's office whenever some of these get brought up to us. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. And even, again, this was a 5-day trial. They were very long days. Whenever cameras on anyone, I'm sure that they're going to get something of you that maybe you wish they didn't catch.
If I had to sit still all day for 5 days, I know the camera would catch me doing things that you know.
Right.
Even with no scrutiny on me, just like why is she doing that?
Right. And I saw one comment there about whether or not she was speaking to her grandparents. And I would just say, I mean, our that comment from Micah. I didn't think people could speak to in court other than lawyers. And again, our sheriff's office does a good job. They're tasked with the courtroom security there. In our courtroom, there were multiple bailiffs in there, and that's not something that falls within the DA's office's purview. That's something that the bailiffs are in control of. And I know that given the fact that even though she's considered an adult who's being tried as an adult in the eyes of the law there, they did try to have sympathy with her and let her converse. I know there were times after some of the hearings pre-trial that she was allowed to meet and see some of her family members. She had basically what we would deem an iPad back in the jail where she could make what we would call FaceTime calls back in the jail, calls, things like that. So I mean, they did try to extend some sympathy. I know there's people out there who think we just want to lock folks up and throw away the key, and that's not the case. I mean, they allow her to have some conversations with her family. And again, these were long days, and the cameras were on all of us, the defense attorneys, prosecution, Carly, the judge, from Monday morning until Friday afternoon.
Sure, and I see where Diana's asking, can we ask questions? Yes, we've said that a couple times. If you have questions, go ahead and ask them. We're fixing to wrap up here. We're getting pretty close to the end. But Michael, I guess my kind of as we wind toward the end, is there anything about this case that we would know to ask you that you feel like it's important for people to know?
I mean, I think given the media coverage of it all, I think most of it's out there. Really, I've tried to say, there's a lot of things. Again, we just started another term with a different judge on Monday. I have probably 40 cases sitting on my desk. I've been meeting with attorneys all day today because the guilty plea deadline. So I've been meeting with attorneys all day today. The argument that I've seen some people make that we have some kind of agenda. Again, I briefly spoke about this earlier about some people or some certain type of cases, or that we just want to throw this 15-year-old now in prison. It's simply not the case. And again, there's been talk about where she's spending her time, whether she's spending in solitary confinement. There's been made some comments. The fact that she's going to be held in solitary confinement until she reaches 18, and that's simply not the case. Anyone can go on the MDSC website. You can look to see where she's being housed now. She's being housed at the Youthful Offender Unit at Central Mississippi Correctional Facility with other people her age who are all under the age of 18. It talks a lot on their website about what services are offered there in the Youthful Offender Unit. There are academic classes. She can start back taking her academic classes now. There's mental health therapy, things of that nature that are offered there. There's drug and alcohol rehab that's offered there. Obviously there's any type of medical treatment that she would need is offered there, and so she will be held there with other juveniles, not in solitary confinement until she's 18. At which time she would transfer over to the general population, within the adult prison. But I mean, this came to our office. We looked at the facts, we looked at the case, and I think trying her as an adult was the proper decision based off of the nature of the crime and what happened, the callousness of it.
Absolutely. Now we've got somebody who said they said she was crawling in a ditch, but her shirt wasn't wet. Guys, I guess my question back to you would be, so are you saying that you don't believe that fact is true? Because
I will say, and I actually know Shell used to work with my wife actually. And so what I would say is that what she was calling in was actually kind of a very large drainage ditch. It really wasn't a ditch. It was like a big culvert. And so there was I don't know, a couple inches, maybe a foot of water down in the bottom, and the culvert is tall enough that I can almost stand up in it. It's not like a little bitty culvert. I can bend over and kind of scrunch through it if you want to call it that. It's and so her shoes and her feet, her shoes and her legs and all that was actually they was actually wet. It's hard to tell because they were dark. She had on dark color shoes. She had on dark color pants. And so her shirt might have been somewhat wet. I really don't recall, but I know that once she was taken to the juvenile detention center into the jail later that night, that all of her clothes were put in a dryer. They have a certain dryer, not what we think of as a dryer, but basically something that dries the clothes out because they were wet.
Sure. All right, so we've got a couple other little questions on there about the fundraiser for the Yes, I've heard of that. I know that's out there. Was there an insurance policy on Ashley? Did that even come into that matter at all?
None of that ever came up. I know that there was a fundraiser on an appeal. I think there was a GoFundMe account at some point was taken down as being in violation of GoFundMe's policies. I think the defense attorney has said that there was an insurance policy. That's nothing that ever came out at trial or anything that our office was concerned with. I do think since the trial has been over, I think the defense has made some comments about that. But obviously, I don't. Whenever I think they said Carly was considered the beneficiary. So if she's the one who killed her mom, which she is the one who killed her mom, then I don't know whether she was able to recover that or not. But I think not probably.
Yeah. That's a lot of commissary.
Right.
Okay, well, if that's kind of the end of y'all's questions, and again, I'm looking at
can you hear these witnesses on of course you can. On the 14?
I don't think you can hear the juveniles. I think that the juvenile witnesses, the cameras had to be off during that time. And so
were one of the kids who showed up? And saw the body?
Yes. So because she's a juvenile, her testimony, her testimony cannot be played. I know there was media in there, and I think they were some of them were tweeting out, kind of live tweeting what was being said, but the cameras could not be on whenever the juveniles were testifying. And I think we talked about Heath and Carly.
We did, yeah. Y'all can see that again.
Yeah, and as a seasoned crime reporter, I'm just going to say that's one of the things that aggravates me the most about these cases that get so big are that people who are dozens of states away sit in their living room and they watch it and they come up with these things, and by the end of it, everything is turned up to now everyone wants to believe there's something going on with Carly. When I did the Jessica Chambers case, that happened back in 2014, but it's gone on ever since. There are still rumors out there that were made up by people who simply got on the internet, researched the case, and decided that one is guilty. And because they found something in their Facebook page from 2002. Something along those lines. So that's why I asked that question about the dynamic of the internet in a case like this, because you see these things where these rumors come up. And to me, like you said, Heath is a stepfather who's lost his wife and his stepdaughter. And that stepfather situation, as you know, Nicole can be a very special one, a very important one to both of them. I hate to see that be something that people use against them for any kind of entertainment.
Right, and again, I just think Catherine and I didn't get caught up in what people were saying and say, well, if Facebook's saying this, then maybe we need to cover this. And that was not something that we wanted to be caught up in. Again, the national pundits on court TV. I mean, they don't necessarily know what the law is in Mississippi. They're certainly not a Rankin County jury. They don't know what the juries are like in Rankin County or anywhere in Mississippi. That's fact down here. And so we didn't want to get caught up in Facebook saying this, so we better go in tomorrow and cover this. That's just not something that we wanted to get caught up in. And so like I said, we tried to avoid, going home at night and that. And again, I was frankly, I was too busy. I was getting about 4 hours of sleep a night during trial. So, like I said, I really didn't have time to go home and scour the internet late at night after I was getting ready for trial.
All right, Nicole, you got anything before we shut down?
I think I'm happy. Thank you so much for coming in today and clearing up a lot of stuff, answering a lot of questions. I think this is our great first episode.
So too, we've got one question just asking what's the next episode. Can't wait to see more. We can't wait to bring you more. Our next episode next week. Now we're trying to find a time. Usually we will be at this time at 5 o'clock on Thursday nights. Next week it's going to be a little different. We're just waiting on our special guest to let us know what works for him. We are going to be interviewing Greg Eklund, who was the lead investigator on the Luke Woodham case. Greg had said the last time I saw him speak, he had said that he wanted to talk about it anymore. And we were lucky enough to be able to get him on our podcast. He'll be with us next week. Watch our Facebook pages. You can go to the Investigation Homicide Facebook page. We also have a link tree. And if our producer extraordinaire Daniel Anderson is over here, and he will put that link up there so that they can find us online. You can watch for that. We want to especially thank Michael for being here with us. I know that you got off work not too long ago. You came straight here. You can dinner with your family. We're really grateful that you're here.
Thank you so much. And I hope I can come back another day. Maybe just to provide commentary, not for a case that I worked on. But thank you guys so much for doing this and shedding light on these cases. And again, this was just a complete team effort from everyone from the sheriff's office to the reservoir, fire and police, and just everyone from our office from Madison County. A huge shout out to my boss, District Attorney Bramlett, and allowing me to come on and do things like this. And he's probably the best boss I've ever worked. So I just really thankful for him, thankful for everyone in our office, and thankful for you guys for having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, Michael, I've got a stack of things that I want to ask you about. So you will be back. I also see where Diana's asking, can you request cases? Yes, you can request cases. That doesn't mean that we will accept them. There are a lot that people want to see because they've seen them somewhere else. In some cases, when you're the reporters that are close to the actual stuff, and maybe just a podcaster who does some research on the internet. Some of them aren't worth digging into. Not trying to be ugly. Nicole's over here. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. But so there are some that we're going to do, and there's some that we won't. But you're free to send us whatever kind of information you want to, and we'll look into it if it merits. So we appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks for coming in for the first episode of Investigation Homicide. We will be back next week. Greg Eklund, Luke Woodham case will be our special guest. So join us then. Bye.